Hello everyone, how are you doing and welcome back. So with Battlefield 5 being free on both PC and PlayStation and being heavily discounted across sort of all the other platforms, I've seen quite a few new and also older veterans return to the game and sort of questioning how does spotting kind of work, as with Battlefield 5 it's quite a bit different from previous Battlefield games. So I thought now would be sort of the perfect time to just go over it and cover it and kind of bring you guys all up to speed so you can kind of get stuck into the game and have a lot more fun with it. So to make sure everything's covered, I'm going to split this video up into 4 sort of separate parts to do with both squad, what classes can spot, what vehicles can sort of help spot, and then finally how to tell if you're spotted. So without wasting any more time, let's jump into it. So this is where Battlefield 5 is slightly different to previous Battlefield games, and that's sort of the personal spotting. So when sort of previous titles you would spot an enemy, they'd get an icon above their head that both the team and your squad can see. However, this time around in Battlefield 5, when you sort of use this spotting button, only your squad can see this icon, and it's not actually something that will follow the enemy around. It's sort of a general marker that will stay static, so it doesn't actually spot the enemy. It sort of just puts a general marker down in that area. So yellow sort of means caution, there's enemies in this area, I've seen some movement, you know, whether it be a vehicle or an enemy player. And then red means that you've been able to spot the actual enemy player or vehicle, and that's sort of like the last known position where they were until you sort of press the button again and sort of update the marker and move it. So that's sort of where spotting's different and kind of how the marking now works in that sort of general spotting, sort of personal spotting that you can do sort of by pressing either the keybind or the buttons on controller. That's kind of where it's different. This section is all about class spotting. Pretty much every class has a way to mark enemies for both their squad and their team, and we're going to cover that now and sort of go over which gadgets they can utilise to help them sort of spot enemies on the battlefield. Jumping straight into it is the recon. This class has the most amount of gadgets that can be used to sort of highlight enemies. This one right here is the spotting scope. As the name suggests, it's a bit of a scope. All you do is simply aim in, target it towards the enemies. You don't have to click anything, just highlight it over them, sort of follow them around it, eventually highlight the enemies both on the map and sort of put a little icon above there of a vehicle or person that both your team and your squad can see. Next up is the flare gun. It's a gadget that you use by shooting it up into the sky and deploying a flare with a parachute. It's got a horizontal radius and it ignores both cover and elevation differences, and so the radius of the circle is sort of proportional to the distance from the ground. So if you shoot it higher, you get a wider circle until it slowly drifts back down on the parachute and the circle slowly shrink over time. The Doppel Schuss is a bit like the flare gun. So by shooting it up in the sky, you shoot a flare. However, this sort of initial sort of firing of it gives you a big AoE circle that can mark plenty of enemies, and then as it falls back to the ground, this sort of circle then becomes smaller and smaller, and it sticks to the surface and makes it harder for the enemies to shoot it as it's sort of on the ground instead of up in the air. And this can be stuck to both vehicles and the ground as well. The sniper decoy is a very unique gadget. It works the same if you play Battlefield 1, very similar to that, and basically what the decoy does is it's sort of a upper torso of a player model, and if the enemy shoots it and destroys it, it then spots the enemy both on the map, and also if it's destroyed it drops a little flare, and it sort of gives you a little AoE circle in that general area. It's not as big as both the Doppel Schuss or the flare gun, it's very small, but it does help to spot enemies. So a few of the classes in Battlefield, mainly the recon, assault and support, have perks that can allow them to spot enemies, whether it be by damaging them or suppressing them. So starting off, if you equip the sniper combat perk, simply hitting an enemy will spot them both on the map for yourself and your team. The assault class, if you equip the vehicle buster perk or specialization, damaging an enemy vehicle will once again spot them. And then finally, if you equip the machine gunner perk and suppress an enemy, so you don't actually have to hit them or do any damage to them, but just by simply shooting around them and sort of suppressing them, it will then spot them once again for yourself and your team. Things out, vehicles, mainly the tanks and planes, can equip different gadgets to help spot enemy vehicles and enemy players. So just going to quickly cover those and then we'll move on to the next section. So starting off with the flares, these work the same way as the recon flares, slightly bigger radius and slightly different physics, but all in all pretty much the same. So starting off with the tanks, on the British side you've got the Valentine AA, and then for the Germans you've got the Panther 38T. For the spotting scope, works the same again as the recon spotting scope. For the tanks, you got the British, you got the Staghound, and then the Valentine Archer. And then for the Germans, it's the Panzer 38T and the Puma. The USA, you have the LVT and the M8 Greyhound. And then Japan, it's the Type 97 and the KA-MI. So moving on to planes, the ones that can equip flares for the British side is the Spitfire MKVA and the Spitfire MKVB. For the Germans, it's the Bf-109G2. For the USA, it's the Corsair F4U-1A, the A-20 bomber, and the P-51K fighter. And for Japan, it's the Zero A6M2. For the Spartan scope, it's the German, once again, Bf-1009G6. USA is the Corsair F4U-1C, P-70 Night Fighter, and the PS-1D fighter. And for Japan, it's the Zero A6M5. And then certain planes can equip sort of a spotting camera specialization. It's pretty much just spotting scope, but absolutely like jacked up, like times 10. And for that, it's pretty much the British Blime MK1, the German Stuka B2, and the JU-88C. To round out this video, we'll go over how to tell if you've been spotted by the enemy. So the area you kind of need to look in to get this information is sort of the bottom left corner where your minimap is, and so slightly just above the minimap. As you can see in this screenshot, if you've either been shot or hit with a spotting scope, you'll get this message here saying you're spotted with a little eye icon in yellow, and then the outline of the minimap will also be highlighted in yellow. And then so for specific, if it's a spotting flare, you'll get sort of a message, similar colour and similar sort of highlighting around the minimap. However, it will say spotting flare. If you see this as well, I always tend to like look up in the sky and kind of shoot down the spotting flare. You want to really take out spotting flares, as you know the enemy constantly get updated where you are, sort of moving around in that area of the spotting flare. So you want to be able to take them down quickly. So all this information here that it's given you, it's sort of a key way to kind of know kind of what's been spotting you, so that you can kind of react accordingly and help you stay alive longer as well. Well, that wraps up the video. If you found it useful or it helped you in any way, make sure to drop a like. Leave a comment down below as well if you have any other tips to do with spotting. Always good to help new people out. If you want to see more content like this as well, make sure to subscribe. You know, got plenty of content for Battlefield 5 and 2042 when that releases. And also drop a comment down below as well. What did you enjoy about this video? What can I do better? Always looking to improve and make these videos better, so that'd be really useful as well. But yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Have a good one.